Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for being a part of this journey. And I think today, Soul Tribe, this is going to be one of those that you will want to remember. We're going to be talking about a controversial subject, one that, for the American people has been a mystery. I know for myself, I was 8 years old the day our president was murdered, and that's what he was. He was murdered, or at least that's the story, we think, but no one knows. So, folks, all I got to say is hold on. Before I introduce our guest, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. Favor be to you. Thank you, moderators out there. I appreciate you. And hello, darling. Good to see you, darling. So, Ryder, you've been on the show many times. I've been on yours, but I was excited to see Jay last on your 200th episode. And when you told me about what was going on, I was like, wow, y'all really kind of kept this thing under wraps. So kind of to introduce everything, everybody knows Ryder Lee from Raised by Giants. Jay, this is the first time I've had the honor of you on the channel. And for my audience, hopefully some of y'all know Jay. If you don't, I've left the link down in the info box, and make sure you subscribe to both these fine gentlemen's channel. So Jay, welcome. Thank you for being on this side of the river.
Hey, well, thanks for inviting me. It's really exciting.
It is. So I'm going to kind of turn this over to both of y'all. So what we're dealing with here is an event that has scarred our country. I mean, again, it's been at least
59
60,
years.
59, I was going to say. Yeah, I was in the third grade. Remember as though it was yesterday. I remember they let us out of class about 1 o'clock. And what was unusual was that if y'all were back there, maybe there's some of you that are older, maybe just a bit younger, TV was not on 24/7. There's only 3 channels.
Yeah.
And Jay, I'm not dating you, but it seems like you have this look and you're like, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I remember because the TV was on all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the first time in the history of television, from the minute that the assassination hit until the funeral on Monday, there was no programming. It was all about the Kennedy assassination on all 3 networks, all Friday, all Saturday, all Sunday, all the way up until about noon on Monday. And then it went back to regular programming. And I was like completely blown away. All my favorite shows on Saturday morning were gone. I had to watch all this dour, people talking about people getting killed and shot. And it was a dramatic event for America. People don't realize it.
I remember it being because we stayed up and they just had the cameras, in the rotunda while Kennedy supposedly laid in state. And I think the other thing that was always in the back of my mind is that I remember Walter Cronkite coming in and talking about Oswald Ruby, and that Oswald had been shot. And of course, it was on live television.
It was.
I often wonder about that. It has always been one of those things like that was almost like Kubuto theater.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
The thing about Oswald, well, first off, Wayne, thanks so much for having us on your show. Really appreciate it. And for staying true to your word. I had a couple of interviews booked and they backed out last minute after they saw the film. Not because we did a bad film, but just because of the theory that we present within the film they didn't agree with.
And it is a theory. There's nothing, no one knows. I mean, but go ahead. Yeah. And if you have, I've left a link, guys and gals. So check it out over there on Amazon. Congratulations on that, gentleman, by the way.
Yes. Thank you so much. But with Oswald, it's really interesting because Oswald was never arrested for murdering the president or shooting the president. He was arrested for murdering a police officer, which was named
Correct.
Jefferson Davis Tibbet. and no one
Yes.
no one really knows that. They think because he everyone just assumed that he had killed the president when they kind of dumped that charge on him after they charged him for the murder of Jefferson Davis Tippit.
Yeah. Oswald, he has a very suspicious past, as everyone knows. He renounced his citizenship and went to Russia, married a Russian. The Russians never trusted him. They thought he was a double agent, which he probably was. And then he eventually came back scot-free. Nobody cared that he'd renounced his citizenship. He was just completely taken back into society. He was handled by people who are obviously spies like George de Mohrenschildt. So Oswald is probably a deep cover spy, intelligence agent. And, I think he spoke 4 different languages, and, he's the guy who barely graduated from high school. Right. And so, I think he was a highly intelligent guy who was used as a patsy. Like he said, he chose the exact word that he was being used as.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, the story of his background almost seems contrived. It was almost like, someone was orchestrating this and then setting the circumstances, and I think they call that typology, in for this guy. And
if I could just interrupt you, because people don't understand that Oswald had a book written about him before the assassination. Yeah. Oswald had a book written about his time. A guy in the Marine Corps that served with him wrote a book about Oswald in the Marine Corps, and it got published.
I still remember, y'all remember Gunny, the guy who used to play the DI. He was an actor, and he actually was a DI. He was on one show, and he said, no way, not with that rifle, not with, he said, I knew some of the best sharpshooters in the world. No way.
No way.
Yeah.
Also, there's a lot of other problems, but there's no way a bolt action rifle, I mean, your first shot's going to be your best by far. So because you have all the time to plan and everything. And the first shot, according to the Warren Commission, was a good hit, but the third shot was the money shot. That would be your least likely shot.
And let's give credit to Oliver Stone. When he came out, I still think it was one of Kevin Costner's really great roles. But even though a lot of that movie was predicated upon a certain path, it was added to, there were some interesting elements about this whole thing. It appeared to be either Kennedy was compromised, or there was something else that he was aware of. And from there, many of the theories have gone down that him and his brother were going to expose the whole thing. I'm not sure. And I'm not giving away the movie.
Yeah, we don't want to do a spoiler, but yeah, you're right. It's curious that the Kennedys, the people don't really ever talk about the fact that Bobby Kennedy, the attorney general for JFK, was really going after organized crime. We talk about the CIA, we talk about lone gunmen, Oswald, and all that, but the most significant thing I can come out of the Kennedy administration, the 3 years of the Kennedy administration, is they're going after organized crime. They got Joe Valachi on the stand admitting that it's all true, that the mob really exists, kind of crapping in J. Edgar Hoover's face in a way, because he had been denying that there was a mob. And here was Bobby proving that there was. The FBI had never done a thing about the mob up until that point. I don't think they've done anything ever since either. So, and the other thing that's interesting is how the mob became part of American culture after the Kennedy assassination. They began making mob movies, The Godfather, and then pretty soon, by mid-70s, we were like, oh yeah, the mob, sure, yeah, they're everywhere.
Everybody fell in love with it. I want to be a made man. I mean, that was the whole idea. And it's interesting, Jay, that, and Ryder, jump in here, is that when you talk about the Justice Department under Bobby Kennedy, it was very clear that the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, and the left hand wasn't about to tell the right hand what the hell was doing. It was very clear.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Bobby Kennedy had a lot of people stabbing him in the back and going back to the mob and telling them what they were looking into. And several times the mob had to change where they were meeting because Bobby Kennedy knew where they were meeting and was sending agents in. So the mob was like completely flipping out. They'd had their own way for years since Prohibition. They'd just been able to roll over everybody. And all of a sudden here, this young punk, is coming after him. And, and I like his son too. His son's got that same kind of, I'll tell you this, and I'll let Ryder speak, but after doing this movie and everything and all the research I did to put into it, I came away. Yes, the Kennedy brothers were not very nice people in a lot of ways. Yes, they made a lot of mistakes, but dang, I think they actually were heroes. They really did try to stop a very terrible thing from happening in our country. And I think that, whatever happened to John and whatever happened to Bobby, they did something really brave.
Well, and you're bringing up memories on this thing now, because if you look at the dynamics of the political structure of the United States, you had the Eisenhower Doctrine that was the military-industrial complex. You had basically a wealthy kid, and the fact of the matter is, John Kennedy was a hero. I mean, his exploits in World War II are well documented.
Yes, they are. Yeah, he was in naval intelligence. He was running the PT boats that were going behind the lines and scooping up mines and doing really dangerous work. And he was a rich kid. He didn't have to do this.
No,
his dad could have got him out of it, but he chose to do it.
Well, his daddy.
By the way, that's where he got that disease, Addison's disease.
Bingo.
He caught that. Yeah, he caught that from seaweed or something where he was getting rid of mines, and he caught Addison's disease, which is a nervous disorder, which is a very painful disorder to have, and he caught that doing work for the U.S. Navy. So yeah.
I mean, the man's character and integrity was above reproach. I mean, he loved women. I mean,
what's wrong with that?
I mean, if I had Marilyn Monroe hitting on me, I mean, Jacqueline was the epitome of class. I mean, she really was. I mean, she brought, because she was actually the first lady of the post-war era that was really came from, sophistication. And that's the image that she carried, and that's the image she did until she passed.
What's interesting, Wayne, is
ahead.
that we have a audio segment between Jackie Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson toward the end of the film, which is very interesting, and I don't think a lot of people have ever heard that before. And it's almost.
And you bring up Lyndon Johnson, Oliver
which
Stone,
was
I
sworn
think,
on Air Force One, like immediately after JFK was done.
Yeah,
Jackie's standing right beside him.
There was some funky stuff, man. I mean, that's all I got to say. It was just the whole thing was so real. And Johnson was the old Democrat. I mean, that dude was well said, my friend.
You know what he did one time? He invited Bobby to come down to the ranch in Texas. And then he said, "Hey, Bobby, you want to go out shooting?" And Bobby's like, "Okay." And so Johnson gave him an elephant gun, like a 6 gauge, like a 6 gauge. And he said, "Hey, here, why don't you try shooting this?" And Bobby had no idea. He thought it was a shotgun. And he lifts it up to the air. He blows off the thing. The thing just knocks him down to the ground. The gun goes flying, and Bobby's got this huge bruise on his shoulder. Because I mean, if you ever fired an elephant gun, my God, you better be, you have to be like really have a lot of strength. And Bobby never forgave him. Bobby was down on the ground. Everybody's laughing at him. All these cowboys are all laughing at him, and Bobby gets up, and I don't think
that's
Bobby
some bad blood.
Pardon me?
That's some bad blood.
Oh, Johnson was a terrible person. Right near the end of his life, I know someone who was running a hardware store in where Johnson lived, and he said that Johnson came in like a couple weeks before he died. He had hair down to his shoulders, he had a beard down to here, and all white, and he was just shuffling along. And he looked at the guy when he was paying for whatever he was getting. He said, "Oh man, I screwed up big time."
It's odd when you talk about Johnson. When I was a ward of the state, there was a private organization that actually had summer camps for rich kids, but they opened it up for us, the ones less fortunate in society. But anyway, my whole point is their property bordered LBJ's property. And the Johnsons, allowed them to go onto their property and do it. But anyway, and Johnson he was one of these guys that when you look at the geopolitics of this whole thing, I think Kennedy was for peace. I think he really saw an opportunity to get us out of, at that time, an Indonesia policing, and that's what initially it was in Vietnam. I mean, the French got the hell out of there because they knew exactly the quagmire.
Oh, yeah. And Johnson had never been in war, but Kennedy had.
Yeah.
So generally, if you've been in war, you don't like war. That's what I found. And so Kennedy's like, what are we doing here? Let's get out. He started pulling the troops out, really peed off the Pentagon because they have contracts. People don't realize, but like I have an uncle, he's long gone, but he worked for Lockheed Martin. High up. And when the first Gulf War started, I saw him at a dinner. And he said, I said, how you doing? He goes, oh, man, I'm doing great. And I said, why? He said, the Gulf War going, I'm making $100,000 a month, right? So people don't realize that the military industrial complex makes a lot of money. Like right now, they're making tons off the Ukraine war. And I mean, these guys are raking it in. And Kennedy saw that. And he knew that Eisenhower's warning about this, he took it seriously. And he started doing really crafty things like moving bases to other states and making sure that things weren't centralized. So the Pentagon was more spread out, and then putting civilian leadership in. And so Kennedy was like really, like we say in the film, he was really pissing off a lot of people. In fact, there was no end to the number of people that he was getting angry at him. And so, as we show in the film, the events of November 22nd, 1963 were almost foreclaimed or whatever, because we know that there was a hit out on him from the mob. We play the recording in the movie. They said they're going to shoot a high-powered rifle from the top of an office building. FBI informant and the person who's planning on setting the whole thing up. The mob had hits out on him. We have an interview with the mobster in the movie where he says, "Yeah, Kennedy had peed off everybody, and that's when they ordered the hit." And so, what we're showing you in the film is a theory about the assassination. But what we say about the Zapruder film itself is not a theory. We're actually showing you for the first time, we're using high technology that's just been recently developed in the last 6 or 7 years, where we can take an old movie and put it through this technology, and then it removes frames and scratches and repairs the entire film so it looks as pristine as like it was shot yesterday. And so what we did was we just put the Zapruder film through that kind of technology, and then we're finally, for the first time ever, really able to see the Zapruder film clearly without any damaged scratches or anything. And what we show is what really happened, at least on the Zapruder film. Anything else, because we also show that the autopsy pictures of JFK do not match what you see in the Zapruder film. In the Zapruder film, you clearly see a shot to the right side of the head coming from somewhere that way. But in the autopsy, this is all fine and dandy on the head, but the back of the head is blown out. So you can say what you want, but somebody's lying.
Interesting. Let me ask you, gentlemen, because you all have done the research and immersed yourself into this. One of the questions I've always had was that, Kennedy was a smart guy. So was Bobby. And I'm left many times to ask myself, So they were aware of what they were with the mob. Very clear. They had pissed him off all the way back to Italy, from my understanding.
Yes.
There is one theory out there that it was kind of blessed by the I'll just say the Vatican. So you got Bobby and John, very close brothers. I can't imagine that they would get lured into such what was almost it was a deliberate setup.
Well, you got to remember that Joe, the dad, he's the one that forced RFK onto JFK. JFK was using Bobby as his brother and associate, and we were doing interviews for who would be attorney general. And Joe just walked in the room and said, "What are you looking for attorney general for? You got one right here," right? And kind of forced it on to John to take Bobby, although he was fine, but he didn't like it because it smacked of nepotism. He actually said that. Okay, so, but he got him. So he had somebody he could trust. And Joe did that on purpose, because here's the thing. Joe was a mobster. Okay, he was clean living by the time that Kennedy was elected, but he had been a mobster and made all of his money running booze out of Canada. And he did something nasty to Meyer Lansky. He swiped a bunch of booze from Meyer Lansky. And Meyer Lansky was really not the guy to piss off. Meyer Lansky never forgot or forgave anybody. And so Meyer Lansky had a thing with Joe, and I believe that, I can't prove any of this, it's just speculation. I would never put it in the film, but I believe Joe told RFK to go after him.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah,
which is crazy because RFK, literally, I watched all of RFK giving his speeches and everything for the making of this film. And it's unbelievable. And we put it in here, the things that RFK was saying to Congress and in these lawsuits. Pretty much everything that he was saying back in the early 60s has been parroted through conspiracy community. They're saying the exact same things, just in different words. I mean, we show it in the film. He says that he has uncovered a huge plot of governmental organized crime.
Government organized crime, yep.
And that that this organization has 7 to 12 members, right, at any given time. Everything that he was saying, it was unbelievable. I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm calling Jay, and I'm like, holy crap, this guy was the real deal. And RFK, which is JFK's brother, I think people are getting really confused with RFK Jr. and JFK and JFK Jr. So
Let's clear that up. Let's clear that up right now. JFK is John F. Kennedy, 35th president of the United States. RFK is his brother, who was JFK's attorney general, and JFK Jr. is his son, who's running for president.
And RFK also got assassinated as well and shot in the side of the head, which is wild that they would do that. But I was really taken back by exactly what he was saying back in the early 60s. It's exactly what everybody is saying right now to this day. Just in
the implications, Ryder, what y'all have discovered here is frightening, because it's very apparent this organization, this cabal that is fronting as the United States government, because we play house, we play Caputo theater, by everything that, we go to the polls and we elect our representatives. No matter who they are, there's this background that obviously John Kennedy said no. Now it was allowed to continue. Can you imagine where it is now? Almost, like you said, 59, 60 years later.
Oh, it's completely corporatized. That's what they did.
Exactly. There we go.
They became the corporations. It's there've been a bunch of movies about that process. The Godfather is about that. Remember, they had the gang, and then he moves out to Nevada and starts a casino, right?
Yeah.
So now it's a legitimate businessman, right? And same thing.
Let me tell you what you're going to do, Senator.
Yeah,
you're not only going to pay the fee. I love that.
I love that.
Al Pacino, that's just, it's one of those things I've embedded in my head.
Al Pacino is the best non-actor ever. He just sits there with a stone cold face, right? Like, do you really want to mess with this guy?
I knew it was you. Stab me in the back.
But
I
and
digress.
Meyer Lansky is in the Godfather movie. He's the guy. He gets assassinated by Al Pacino. He assassinates the Meyer Lansky character, which didn't happen. Meyer Lansky died of old age. But
what was Lansky in on the Bugsy hit?
No. That was no. But that's an interesting hit. I've got to tell you, that is an interesting hit. And I think it might have been the Irish Mob.
And here's just me. I swear they got that on film. I'm not, and of course in the movie we see how it's depicted, but I'm telling you, I think the mob actually had cameras set up on that when
they did.
Yeah.
Okay, so famous story. Meyer Lansky calls the whole mob together. This is about 1953 or so. And he on a stage in a big, huge theater. They're all there, all the bigwigs. And he walks out, he opens up the curtain. There's a tripod with a Bolex 16 millimeter movie camera and a tripod with a Thomason machine gun on it. Right. And he says, which one of you guys think, which is more powerful to you guys? This one? Nobody clapped when he did the camera. Or this one, the Thompson. He goes, you're wrong. This is what is more powerful. So we're going to set up safe houses in every single city in America with one-way mirrors. We're going to put these cameras behind the mirrors. We're going to bring all the cops, the judges, everybody, newspaper guys, everybody into these houses. We're going to compromise them. We're going to shoot them on film. We'll keep the film. If they don't play our game, we send a copy of the film to their wife.
You know what? These guys were early day hackers.
They were.
I mean, they had the virus,
And that's the thing. The Kennedy brothers didn't know this. They didn't know. Since Joe had been out of the mob by the 1950s, they didn't know that there was this giant compromise thing going, all of Jeff Epstein, or whatever his name is, right? And but way earlier. And it's just amazing because people don't realize it, but those safe houses are piggybacked into the porn industry, which the mob owned. And so the mob had these film labs doing porn, and then that's where they processed all the film for their safe houses where they were compromising all the politicians. And this was all with guards around the laboratories and everything with guns, and people don't realize, Kennedys didn't realize what they were up against. That's another thing we point out in the movie, which is why they took the actions that they took in the movie, because they had vastly underestimated the mob and how far it had advanced since Joe left.
Marilyn Monroe, Jay, as you were just talking, it makes me more and more suspicious about her.
For sure she does. Yeah, and also the woman we point out, Mary Pinchot Meyer, who is also a lover of Kennedy's, beautiful socialite, who's ex-wife of the head of the CIA, Cord Meyer. And she's shot in broad daylight in D.C.
Whoa.
It's like, and nobody's ever convicted of it. It's like, what in the world? And the first person to get there on her assassination was a reporter who said that she was just laying there on the sidewalk with no blood. So it's just the strangest story. And Marilyn Monroe's story is equally just as strange. And
I swear, she's a result of a hit. Someone put the contract out on her.
Yep, I agree completely. There's a story there that I know that I can't tell anyone, and it also involves Jackie, but I can't tell anyone because it's too painful to the Kennedys to tell. So I'm not going to tell the story yet. But there is some future date where I'm going to tell that story, and it's going to shock a lot of people.
Y'all, I'm telling you, we've built, there's so much intrigue now around this. There's so many different players that would all have a reason and a motive to.
Yeah, but then why is no one cop to it, right? Why, if the mob was the one that killed JFK, assassinated JFK, then why does no one know who done it?
Yeah, because it would seem to me that if you're going to take a chance and kill the president of the United States, you kind of want to make sure everybody knows that it was you that did it, because you're the badass of badasses. Otherwise, all it did was cause all this fear and trembling. We weren't sure at all what was going on. But we also have to understand that by this time, by 1963, the CIA was 16 years old at this time, and it had been given rules that it could not operate on American soil. So what it had done to circumvent those rules was it brought the mob in and said, listen, will you hit this guy over here? We need to have a hit. Will you hit it? We'll pay you money. And the mob's like, yeah, great. We got the American government working with us. So now we have the CIA and the mob working with each other. And then what I call the great melting happened after the Kennedy assassination on November 22nd, where the intelligence agencies and the mob just melted together into one amorphous mob, and that's where we are today. They're the mob, and they all work together, and they also work with like cult groups too. So now cult groups have been brought in to this kind of marriage between intelligence agencies, the military, the mob, and so we're getting this weird like cult thing going now, where they're making cults to mind control people. So it's very interesting how the whole thing really is mind control. That's what it is. The whole thing. It's using theater to mind control the population. And we're going to discover through the next few films that Ryder and I are going to do that they do this all the time. They're doing it today. And it's theater. And we have to recognize that it's theater and quit falling for it.
Wow. And it's still, I come back to this. So do you think Kennedy was just completely naive of this whole thing in Dallas? I mean,
I think he had all rich people have a private police force around them. Trump has it. If you got billions of dollars, you got to have it. So Kennedy definitely had a private group of guys that were protecting him. And I'm sure that they intermixed with the Secret Service, right? So you couldn't tell who was who. Maybe they all dressed alike. And I think they were the main operators of what was going on that day. I don't think Kennedy really had to do much to get everything done. But they knew that if Kennedy didn't do something, he was going to be assassinated, but probably so was Jackie and the two kids, because the mob. Yeah, that's the thing. You can do something brave and fight against organized crime and throw your life away. Yeah, that's great. But you don't understand. Organized crime doesn't let you get away with that one. First, they come and they kill your dog. Then they come and they kill your kids. Then they come and they kill your wife. Then they come and kill you. They want to, if you've done something really bad to them, that's how they do it. And you'll see, you can actually watch mob hits. There's a famous couple in Canada about 5 years ago. Clearly they were billionaires, and clearly it was a mob hit. And you could see that they came in, they killed their dogs, they killed their kids, right? And it's like, holy moly, man, these people do not fool around. And Joe had to have told John that, this is what they do. This is how Meyer Lansky and the boys, ride. And you better be careful. And John finally realized that if he kept going the way they were going, that he risked all of his family's life. And so JFK had to take some kind of action to prevent Jackie and Carolyn and John Jr. from losing their life too. And we don't know about John Jr. because the fisherman there that was looking up at the sky when his plane said it exploded. So
I was in New York City. I was staying at the downtown Marriott that weekend. It was just really odd, the whole thing there too.
It was really odd.
And it's also there's speculation too that Joe Kennedy, with his mob connections, got JFK elected.
He did.
Well, so that might be another reason. And then the mob tried to come in and be like, hey, you're going to have to do what we tell you to do. And JFK is like, no, we're not playing that. And then RFK turns around and starts prosecuting the mob. you know?
Yeah,
So
they
that was
thought
like
it
a
was
huge
stab in the
backstab.
back. Yeah, backstabbing. And so,
So,
it was a dangerous thing for them to do. I got to tell you, in retrospect, it was foolhardy and dangerous to go after them like they did. And we show
was
in
there
the
a money motivation to this, do you think? Because I mean, you're
No.
talking, it's odd because today everything seems to have a motivation of cash. Not here.
Not here. I don't think so. I think it was I think it was vengeance on Joe's part. I think Joe wanted to. Maybe he recognized that that he thought it out. And clearly he thought, if this goes on like it's going to go on, there's going to be heroin everywhere. There's going to be, the mob will just take over. And we'll look at the world today. It's not heroin, it's fentanyl, but it's everywhere. We have it in our community. We can't get rid of it. So, who's bringing that in? And organized crime is bringing it in, cartels and things. So, the world that he probably saw the ramifications, saw where this country would go if it wasn't stopped or at least slowed down. And he sent in his own son to do it. And here's what's really interesting. And I this is kind of frightening, but Joe had a heart attack. And he a brain aneurysm from the heart attack, and he couldn't talk after 1962.
Really?
So Joe is a bad guy. I'm not going to kid you around. He gave his daughter a full frontal lobotomy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is known
21 years old. 21 years old, in a mental institution for the rest of her life. So he wasn't. Wasn't like a real sweet guy. You know what I mean?
You think about this. So in one aspect, you step back and you look and you're going, it was almost like the United States was this pseudo so-called representative government. But that was just the shades. The real business was the business.
Right.
You have your hand in everything. And I look today, well, if the mob was really smart, apparently they were and are, is that you would become a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
You would make the rules that would favor the family.
They do. They do.
I mean, it's like I'm going, John was about to really just do a dump on the whole thing. I mean, that would piss a lot of people off.
Well, I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to be very delicate here because it's important to bring it up. But, that Disney was sat on this film, Sound of Freedom, for 5 years. It was shot in 2017, and it was done by 2018. Disney bought it and sat on it. And you're like, okay, and it's one of the highest rated money films in America right now. Why would they sit on this? And, of course, it's a subject matter, right? Okay, so the subject matter, why wouldn't they want that subject matter out? Well, because one of the things that the mob discovered was a really great way to make money was trafficking people.
Yeah.
And they didn't really discover it until like 20 years ago or so. And so they discovered about 20 years ago they could make heaps of money with human trafficking, just like they could with heroin and all the other things that they did. And so we don't even know how big this is or how much money is being made in it or anything. We really don't know anything about it except that it's going on.
I'm going to do a show, Jay, bringing that point out. Do you know how many people go missing a day in the United States?
I do. I'm very good friends with David Paulides.
Yeah.
Wrote the Missing 411 books, and it's absolutely frightening how many people disappear every day. Just disappear. Never seen. 85,000 children have come over the border in the last 2.5 years, and we don't know who they are. We never checked them. They didn't have any parents.
Yeah, that's one of the tragedies in this whole mess. And it's just, I mean, and I'm thinking to myself, it's amazing because cause and effect. So the events of 1963, November 22nd, and to see the impact that it has had on a nation of people, it's heartbreaking in one aspect. And, because I feel like the American people in this thing, they're the ones that are being played for the patsies.
Well,
They are.
the FBI and the Secret Service knew what happened, right? And that's why they didn't follow up on any of the eyewitness accounts. None of the people that were that claimed to have seen something. The person that had the shrapnel in the side of their head, supposedly, right? They didn't follow up on that, and then that led people to believe that there was a giant conspiracy around it, right? Whenever you don't give people the facts and the truth behind something, people just create their own facts. They just create their own truth, right? And that's how, and the JFK assassination was literally the start of the conspiracy theory. That's where all of this stuff came from. So we're taking it all the way back in this film to the original conspiracy theory. And there's been so many theories over the years that has completely muddied the waters of everything, right? People claim that the guy in the limousine, the driver of the limousine, was the one that shot him. People claim that there was a grassy knoll shooter.
That's what Oliver Stone's movie was.
They claimed that it was a ritual. They claimed that there was the badge man photo, right? There's all of these different theories and concepts because they know what happened and they don't care, right? They're not going to come out and say exactly what happened, right? Because then that just exposes everything. That's why the JFK documents will never be released, because it actually, I believe that what we present in this film is in those JFK documents.
Yep.
And that is the thing that is going to completely destroy society. I mean, Trump was talking about to Judge Napolitano that he couldn't release the JFK files because he promised.
Bill Clinton said the same thing
over and over and over again, and he was like, "Oh, I can't do this because it's going to completely wreck everything." Well, you know, and there's people that have theories that it has something to do with advanced technology and UFOs, and that it was the CIA. People have been claiming that the CIA has done it forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, it's always been the CIA who pulled
not the CIA, right? Yeah. Because anything that's accepted by the majority of the population is wrong. It's always wrong. Right. And they keep the real thing, they hide the real thing under the rug. It's a distraction. Right. So what I think that we present in this film is what is in those JFK files. And it's the biggest thing that would completely disrupt everything that we know surrounding the JFK assassination. And I think that's the reason why people, and it's really going to make a lot of people mad. It's going to upset a lot of people, right?
It already has.
A lot of people have researched this event and studied it for more than half their lives. Like some people, all of their lives, they've studied this event, right? And then we're coming along and giving you what actually happened, or, you know, what we think, and we present it with evidence with this Zapruder film. And once you watch it, your mind is going to be melted, I think. And there's been people that I've sent it to that's watched it and they've loved it. They've watched it 3 or 4 different times, and young people really like it. And the older generation really like it as well. So it's kind of like, which I thought that it would be the opposite way around.
So what does your generation find compelling about an event that happened, 6 decades ago?
Well, I don't think that they really have a solid opinion on it. Right, they're just kind of following everyone else's lead on it. That it was that the CIA staged it, the Secret Service was involved, which we do show in the film that the Secret Service agents were being called off of the limousine, called back from the limousine by their superiors. Because as Jay presents in the film, the standard operations for a limousine in the public like that, there's supposed to be 2 Secret Service agents running along the limousine as it goes down in the public on both sides of in case there was some kind of threat on the president's life, a bomb or something like that going off, or someone trying to kidnap the president. You want those Secret Service agents running right beside of the vehicle. But right as they're getting ready to run alongside of the vehicle, they're called back.
Interesting.
Right? Which leads people to believe that the Secret Service was involved in the assassination, but they weren't.
But they weren't. No, when people have to also understand that if the shooter is at the grassy knoll, which is what Oliver Stone and the conspiracy people say, or if the shooter was on the 6th floor of the book depository, which is what the government says, if someone was firing, I don't know how familiar you guys are with guns, but if someone was firing a .30 caliber rifle, which is what they claim happened here, it would be so loud. It would just be like ear splitting. And 3 shots would be completely ear splitting. Everyone would be down on the ground. Everyone would be looking either at the 6th floor of the book depository or at the grassy knoll, whatever place the gunshots are coming from. So they would see the shooter, because by the second shot, everybody's going to be looking at where the gun is coming from. The gunshots are coming from. It's human nature. Also, and of course, nobody in the Zapruder film reacts to any gunshots going off. Nobody in the limousine turns to look anywhere. They don't hear them. Nobody hears it. Interestingly enough, because we have a good version of the Zapruder film, and it's one of the weirdest things of all is when that thing happens on JFK's head, the driver is looking at JFK. The Secret Service guy in the front seat is looking at JFK. Connolly's wife is looking at JFK, and Connolly is looking at JFK. Only Jackie is not looking at JFK. She's the only one in the car, who's not paying any attention. So everybody is clearly ready for some event to happen before it happens, because they're all looking at it before it happens. Right. So, and this, of course, people who see that, they're involved too. Oh my God, the Connollys and the driver are all involved. And I think what we do best in the film, and I really have to give Ryder credit for his directing and editing, is we capture the chaos of that day really well, I think. The very chaotic things that were going on. But also, we show in the film how you can take a little tiny piece of evidence and run full boogie with it, writing books and screenplays, and it's all based on really flimsy, almost nothing evidence. And I think that we, as in our community of people who look at these things, we have to, realize that there's usually something underneath the surface that you're not seeing. And when you look under the surface, lift the hood and look at the engine, you see what's really going on. So there's a superficial world they show us, then there's the real world. And all events are that way. So, I can't hardly believe anything I hear on the news anymore.
I've been on Daily Plaza, been down there. And one of the things, because, particularly as you were saying, Jay, if you understand a caliber of a gun, that the echo off the buildings would have been, to me, I don't know how you're taking the technology they had back then, how they could have ever determined from where the initial concussion came from.
Boy, am I glad you brought that up, because we've something missing in the film, which I didn't discover until later, only a week ago, I guess. And that is, so I was watching the film, and then I thought, well, why did the Warren Commission determine that there were 3 shots? What's the evidence? So I started looking, and there was a cop behind the limousine who had left his radio on accidentally. And so it was being recorded at Dallas Police, right? And so they used that recording. Well, I said, okay, well, then I'm going to try to find that recording and listen to it. So I found it and I listened to it, and all I could hear was just cacophony, noises and people talking and horns honking and engines running. And I was like, maybe I don't have, ear problem or something. I can't hear it. So then I started looking further, and I found a 1980 FBI report. They looked at that. Their acoustic team looked at that tape and concluded there's no gunshots on that tape.
Wow.
Yeah. And I wish I'd included it in the movie, but I didn't.
It's amazing, Jay, you bring that up, because I think you're one of the very few people. I mean, if anyone's ever been down there in Dallas, I've been there several times. It's still one that I just shake my head. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I had a 3-hour layover in Dallas, and I took a taxi to Dealey Plaza about 10 years ago. Yeah. And when I got there, I was like, really? You thought 3? I mean, a 30 caliber bullet is like, the lead is like this big. I mean, it's huge. I mean, and this is the other thing, I hate to say this, because, but if you got hit by a bullet right here, a 30 caliber bullet, this entire part of your head,
you'd be a cantaloupe. It just
people that and it's curious how people who know guns haven't asked themselves these questions. Like, why isn't anybody reacting to gunshots? Why isn't his head blown completely off? It's just curious. And I don't know why. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think that the whole thing is just so confounding that even really intelligent people get it wrong when they look at it, because you have to know so much to understand what you're really looking at.
The implication. Go ahead, Ryder.
I mean, even the cover photo that you used as a thumbnail for this video is very telling. As the X where JFK was shot, and you can see the school book depository all the way in the back. So if the shot came from the school book depository, how did it hit him in the right side of the head?
It couldn't. It was a heat-seeking bullet.
Well, and that's the other controversy. I mean, Stone brought that out in his film, and again, it's that classic moment for Costner, where he shows. So, how the hell did this bullet go out, do a 180, come back and do a 45?
And it's pristine. I mean, anybody knows bullets.
It's like,
hitting
look at there it is.
Yeah, there's the bullet. No scratches on it at all, man.
No, yeah. There's a reason why bullets are copper. I mean, there's a purpose for that.
Well, also, the bullet was found on a stretcher at the hospital.
Yeah.
Would it fall out of Kennedy on the stretcher? Come on, it couldn't have, because it hit Connolly. So,
and I'm sure the powers to be don't like these type of conversations, but listen, an event that happened 60 years ago that we still don't have any answers to. I mean,
I think we do now, but I'm not
going to give away the end of the movie.
What I've discovered from the movie is that the boomers, and they're the ones I was actually most interested in because I'm a boomer. The boomers are shocked. Yeah. And then the younger people are like, oh, finally, we can get this thing behind us. So that's kind of that's what I think is going to happen. I think that just like with the moon landing, how shocking it was when we saw the effects of Stanley Kubrick making them and everything. And I didn't say we didn't go to the moon. I just said what we see is Stanley Kubrick doing that. Now everybody pretty much accepts it. I think that's what's going to happen here. The boomers are going to be shocked. Then they're going to accept it. The younger generation, the Xers and the millennials, are going to go, good, let's get this behind us and let's move on. And I think it is time to move on. I really do. I think
there's a certain healthy aspect to that. I mean,
thank you. It's a very healing movie, I think.
It's like if you have a splinter, it's going to fester.
Yeah.
The way to do it is cleanse it out. And I believe y'all have done that. I think, as you said, you've reached, and I'm not going to give it away, some very startling conclusions that I could see why those conclusions could potentially piss some other people off. I'm just saying, guys,
cognitive dissonance. It's causing cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a really good friend who's a very famous, I've known him for 40 years. He's a real famous conspiracy theorist, and everybody knows his name. And I sent him the movie and he watched it, and you should read the email he sent me. It is just one disparate sentence that makes no sense with the next sentence. And it's just, you can tell the poor guy is going through the worst cognitive dissonance he's ever had. He's trying to explain it to himself because he's not explaining it to me.
Like, what the hell are you doing, man?
It's really fascinating.
Everybody has such an investment in the dark side of the story.
Yeah.
That when you see that it's not quite as dark as everybody's painting it, it's not as much fun.
Oh, yeah. Well,
are
you entertained?
It's entertaining.
They definitely should be. We put a lot of work into that. I was working from the moment that I woke up to the moment that I went to sleep.
Well, Ryder, this was some excellent work, by the way. I did not know that you did the editing on that.
Yeah, I
Oh
would
yeah.
wake up in the middle of the night and start working on it too because I couldn't sleep. So yeah, it was an
Yeah.
amazing experience, and I definitely hats off to Jay for taking a chance on me and letting me make this film and make something that is kind of
Yeah.
like writing a book. It's like the equivalent to writing a
It
book,
is.
something that's going to stay forever, that's always going to be there, and that's a huge accomplishment I think on my end, and Jay taking
It's a
the
hell of
chance.
an accomplishment. I
I,
mean,
I I literally hit Jay up because our original thought and our original idea was to do it on The Shining because I presented Jay with a new theory of mine on The Shining. And
oh,
that's going to be our second film.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do another film. But we decided to do this one first because we needed to get something out right away. And then also the announcement of RFK Jr. is running for president. So we
and the 60th anniversary.
and the 60th anniversary.
Yeah, they're kind of nervous about that, the establishment out there. They're like,
well, I want to say something about this. Ryder did a great job. I had no idea that he, and I did take a chance on him. What happened is that I got, I turned 70, and I got a phone call from an old friend of mine who's about my age too, telling me happy birthday, and he's a filmmaker, famous filmmaker. And he said, "So, are you mentoring anybody?" And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Wait a minute. Are you telling me that you've got all these skills, a lifetime of skills, and you're just sitting around wasting all those skills? You're not helping anybody?" I said, "I didn't even think about it." And he said, I'm helping like 5 people, dude, and you're not helping anybody." And I was like, I started feeling really guilty. And then, like the next day, I got the idea for JFKX. It all just flashed in front of me, the whole idea. And then I was, I think, Facebooking with Ryder at the time, and I said, "Hey, you want to make a film?" And he said, "Yeah." And we split the roles up. I said, "You direct and edit, and I'll produce and write." And he said, "Okay." I said, "Well, can you sleep on a couch for 2 weeks? Because I haven't got anything but that." And he said, "Oh, no problem." And he actually had it worse than a couch. So I'll say that. He had a cot. Anyway, so he came down here.
And I'm really tall, Jay. I'm 6'4".
Yeah, he's really tall.
He really is, folks. I mean, if you've not seen Ryder, I saw you with Trina, and I said,
he's definitely
damn, that dude is tall, man.
He's a red-headed giant. And so from the day that I got the idea to the day it went up on Film Hub and Amazon Prime, I should say, 88 days total. 88 days total. That's the fastest film I've ever made. And to me, what I think happened is the universe, whatever you believe in, higher power, said, "It's time. It's time for this to get out. It's time to put this behind us. And I'm just going to remove all obstacles for these 2 guys so that they can get this thing out as fast as they can." And I mean, even the Film Hub, Film Hub is all AI. It's really a pain in the ass to work with. You have to do all the work yourself. Nobody helps you. There's no help center or any frequently asked questions. And I'm like daunting task of being this, guy who's not really super high tech, having to do all of this. I'm determined to do it. So I'm just like Ryder's working 16 hours a day. I'm trying to get this thing up 16 hours a day. And then we got it up and got it on Amazon Prime, and the rest is history. But the universe just paved a smooth path for this to all. I kept waiting for something to happen, to be honest with you. I kept waiting for a technical glitch or Ryder and I to get in a big argument or something. I was like, something's going to happen here. We can't go this well, but it did. And I'm really happy for it. And I had no idea about Ryder's skill set. He didn't show me any reels.
I was surprised. I got to tell you, Ryder, it was the editing. That's what I did for 20 years. I worked in post-production for some of the biggest post houses. So you did an excellent job. I thought the voiceover and the syncing was perfect on, I'm telling you, I'm impressed because I haven't seen any misedits. So
no, I've had 4 filmmakers have now, famous filmmakers have seen it and have told me, "Whoa, dude, that's really well made." So
yeah, thank you guys. I was excited to bring this to the forefront because I don't think people really realize what I was capable of and what I was capable of doing. So I'm glad that it came across that way and showcasing my talent for.
Well, I want to see the next one for sure. The Shining, that is, woo, that's one, and I'll be the first. I'd love to do another interview when that film is released. So it's an open invitation.
I'd like to say that what we're going to be doing with the 3 films that we're doing, and maybe 4, maybe more, is we're twisting reality back to normal.
I love that. That's kind of like doing taffy, you untaffy it,
Yeah. So we made the JFK assassination normal.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I hope you found the conversation. I mean, this has been fabulous, gentlemen. I'd encourage everyone. I believe that, and the price for on Amazon that I've left below, very reasonable. I think it's $2 to rent it, and $4.99 I think to buy it. So it's a way that we can all show our support, because folks, when you're into film and you're not only the creative aspect, but you're also the production to get it out. I mean, it's hard work, and it's sometimes very, how shall we say, can be a challenge, because you're focusing your energy. And I don't usually make pitches like this, but this is a way that you can put a few coins into their pocket that'll help, so that Ryder next time won't have to sleep on a cot, and we'll actually send him with, his own folding bed. That's the plan. And we can help this thing by going viral. And, listen, the next one, who knows, they may be able to actually get some editing equipment. I mean, the possibility. So my point is, drop some money in over their side. It's going to go to a good cause.
Yep.
Yeah,
Amazon Prime.
People. There you go.
Amazon Prime, JFKX, solving the crime of the century.
And by doing that, also, the more hits that they get over in Amazon Prime, the higher it will go up in, when you're browsing,
And if you like it, please give it 5 stars and a good review. We really appreciate it.
Bingo. There we go.
Please share it out with your friends and your family and everything. That really helps. This is a grassroots thing. Like we don't have a big production company behind us. We don't have
not yet.
No distribution. Not yet. I hope for the second one we do off of this film, because the second one's going to be amazing.
Abracadabra.
That's right. Cast all the favor on that, Wayne. Thank you. But yeah, we don't have a big production. This is just all, we don't have distribution. We don't have people pushing it out. It's just really just me and Jay, and we're going to be doing these interviews. So please watch it. Please share the link with your friends and family. And thank you guys so much for coming on here with me. And thanks so much, Wayne, for inviting us on. And thank you, Jay, for taking a chance on me, my friend. I literally just messaged him. He was like, how confident are you in your editing abilities? And I was like, I'm very confident. And Jay was like, all right, come on. And I was
proud of you. Proud of you, man.
Well, I actually thought I was going to be having to show him how to do things, and I didn't have to do any of that. So I was really grateful for that one too.
All right.
I thought I was going to have to teach him what a dissolve was. And
the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start getting you guys into some nominations. There's a lot of different film festivals out there that this is the type of thing that I would find very appropriate. I would think something you two should think about is making plans next March for South by Southwest. This is something you need to start doing now. But the talent that I have seen, I have been the president of ad clubs and International Television Association, so I know what I'm speaking about. My company was the first company that ever did a live webcast from South by Southwest.
Really?
Yeah, that was back in 2000. So this is the type of thing I encourage you both to pursue, because the type of quality of work that I have seen on this is worthy enough for consideration in any film festival.
I'm going to definitely take you up on that and look at the festivals that are coming up and start applying.
Definitely get down at South by Southwest. This is one way that you have a perfect, again, this subject matter is the type that pulls the curiosity in. and it'll also make you some introductions into some of the industry. And I'll do some checking of my own of some of the people I know as well.
Thank
all
you
right,
very
everybody.
much.
Everybody,
Thanks,
Scotty Boy says, go Ryder Ranger.
That's right. Go Ryder
He ain't
Ranger.
afraid of no editing. Gaia says she's worked in many film festivals. So Gaia, if you want to help them, maybe send them some in direction on this, go and watch the movie. You're going to enjoy it. You'll see what I mean. And I expect this next year to see this being probably award winning. So that's where I'm looking at.
Wow, thank you.
Thanks so much, Wayne.
Gentlemen, much love to you. Thank you for tuning in.
you.
Stay with me on this one. Folks, thank you as well. Again, show these folks how much you love them. And the best way you can do that is A, go watch the movie. 2, give 5 stars, and then subscribe to their channels. All right. Much love, everyone. We'll see you again.